Hello.
And welcome to the Champagne Room Secrets podcast.
What the fuck?
I don't know if this is shameful, but if you have a small dick, have a good personality.
Failing the champagne.
Your wife died? Here, have a titty.
It's not a sex podcast, but it is a stripper
You can
podcast.
grind your clit on a guy's hard dick and come.
But you've never made someone come in their pants, right?
I'm Candy,
I'm Jade.
your friendly neighborhood horse here to walk you through the ins and outs of the strip club and sex work industry.
Uncensored.
We have a guest with us right now. We are super excited. What do you want us to refer to you as?
My stripper name was Neptune.
Oh.
So maybe that.
Oh, okay. That is really cool. I've never heard that before.
What was the inspiration for that one?
It just kind of came to me. You know, I've used lots of different names. I danced. I'm retired, but that one just felt like the right one because I chose it and not some house mom.
Mhm.
Yeah. Super, super important to have your own kind of identity, I guess.
I have noticed like some girls choose names that are very much like, like Rachel or Sally or whatever. And some are very obviously like, Sativa, like Hades or something. Like, would you get like more annoying questions of like, what's your real name? Or like, how would you handle that?
Good question. I have had like normal girl names, quote unquote, in some clubs that just required them. And it not seem to matter. If anything, I feel like I can be a little bit cheekier with it. When I was Neptune, I would just be like, oh my God, it is my real name. What's your real name?
Yeah.
Or sometimes I would just lie and be like, it's Alicia. If they asked, then they weren't going to spend money. And that, like 9 times out of 10, that was the case. And so it was really just a good way to be like,
Moving on.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Now that you mention it, I don't think I've ever like made that connection, but I feel like that is true in my experience as well.
I think I made it subconsciously because my response to that is always, oh, is this your first time at a strip club? Just like, it's so snarky and like, honestly, the jig is done. Like, but I'm just like, why? Because you don't know how to behave. Like,
Yeah. So anyways, Neptune and I met at an event. Don't want to give too many details, but it was a non-stripper event that we were both working. And we were talking about pole dancing because I had seen, oh, by the way, what are your pronouns?
I'm comfortable with all pronouns. She is the one that most people use,
Okay,
and that's
cool.
fine.
So I had seen her perform at this circus show, and I actually had sent the video to Jade because I was like, I had never seen a spinning pole before. And that's for the listeners. It's like when the pole is, I almost said levitating, when it's like a rig. It's floating. It's an aerial apparatus. It is not glued to the ground.
the bottom is not attached to the floor.
I don't know why I can't explain it properly. And she was so cool. And so we were talking about pole and I was like, oh my gosh, that was you. And then we ended up chatting. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not an amazing pole performer, but I'm like a stripper. So, I do a little bit. And then she's like, I was a stripper too. And I was like, oh my gosh, where? And it turns out Neptune used to work at what we call Clem's Club. And I was like,
Clementine Club.
and I was like, what? So she was like, oh, dude, are they still there? Are they still there? So we were chatting and then we've kind of seen each other a few times since then. And I was like, do you want to be on our podcast and like share your story and talk shit? And I don't know, whatever else we do.
Our first question, we're going to go a little bit chronologically, is when did you start dancing and why?
So I moved to California on a whim in 2012, over 10 years ago. From New York City, I was like going through a horrible breakup. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm out. I'm gonna move to San Francisco, I guess. And I pretty much decided I was gonna try dancing. I had been doing burlesque in New York City. I realized it's not the same thing, but I was kind of open to just whatever in terms of jobs. I also got a job at a vegan restaurant, whatever. So I was kind of like living that double life. And I started working at the Lusty Lady, was there about a year before it went out of business. And that's when I started travel dancing. I would go to Portland, Miami, Vegas, mostly like West Coast aside from Miami. So I had kind of like my main club and then I would travel around. And especially kind of in the last, like the twilight years of me dancing, I was mostly dancing in Vegas for a while, like every month. I had like one last stint in Portland and that was like right before lockdown. And then basically like cold turkey quit after that. So it was winding down for sure, but
wow,
yeah.
You danced everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's crazy. What do you think is the most money? Where's the most money?
Where's the gold mine?
Where's the gold mine?
I feel like if there was one, wouldn't we all be there? You know, like everyone's got their like ears up for like the hot new place. I will say, I, as a like thin white person with tattoos, made a lot of money in Portland.
Okay.
And I think like that's my audience, you know, my friend that I went to Miami a few times with a couple different friends. And like, you know, there was like the promise of like thousands of dollars on stage, and it just like didn't happen for me. I made okay money there, but to like fly across the country for it, I'm like, I might as well stay home. So for me, being consistent and staying home was the best money. Like where I went 3 to 4 nights a week.
Yeah, that makes sense, because besides like the whole idea of regulars, and we can get into that later, I do feel like just knowing the clientele type who comes in, the type of dancers, and just kind of how the club runs, because we tried to do a little bit of travel and stuff, and it was just like kind of stressful when you don't like know the environment you're getting into.
It is. I mean, it's fun, but like, yeah, when I quit my regular club and was just travel dancing, it was so hard. And it was also right around it was like 2018, and it was around the time that all the laws in California were changing.
Yeah.
There was just influx of California dancers everywhere, no matter where I went. And so like it was harder to get hired and harder to make money because everyone's like thirsty, you know?
Yeah.
It was more and more loopholes to get hired. It wasn't just show up and like get hired. Then it was like places that I had worked before were like, well, you don't have this now. You don't have this kind of certification, this type of license, this type of whatever. You didn't pay this fee. Like it just became harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on top of the travel expenses, you know, covering like hotel, planes or whatever, like Candy and I started dancing in 2021. So we didn't know like the before times. We were planning on going to Phoenix, and it was like, oh, but you need all these licenses before, and like you need to make appointment like weeks in advance. It just was like kind of like logistically a nightmare.
It totally is. I've had some pretty logistical nightmare situations happen, like traveling with like multiple friends where like one person gets the appointment, but the other one doesn't. And one person has this, the other one doesn't. And we're all trying to like make money because it's our job. And just the uphill battle is not fun. It's not a good work environment to like be going into.
Yeah. In our audition episode, we talk about how hard it was to get hired at our first strip club, because I feel like it's a stereotype that like, I'm just going to quit my job and become a stripper. And I'm like, it was so hard. What the hell?
Yeah, I was saying I got into like all the universities I applied to for graduate school, but not all the clubs I tried to dance at. So it's like, but going back, did you know any strippers before you started working as one, or did you have like any expectations of the job, or were you like going in blind?
I went in pretty blind. Like everything about my move to California was just like, well, I'm throwing this out the window and I'm doing this, which was like cool as a younger person. I'm glad that I tried that. My level of research was I spent one day on public transportation going up to North Beach from wherever I was. I like didn't have a home and I was like looking for jobs. So I like rode the train all the way up to North Beach from wherever I was staying. And my goal, my research, the only thing I wanted to do was get a lap dance. I was like, I'm going to go to the club, I'm going to get a lap dance, and then I'm going to get a job. So at the Lusty, because it was a peep show, I didn't get a lap dance, but I like put the $1 in, then the screen went up and I was like, very nice, great. Okay. I kind of get the vibe. Went next door to Hustler, got a lap dance from this lovely person with like a neck tattoo of musical notes. I wish I remember her name. She was super nice. It was like 4 p.m.
What a lap dance.
One lap dance.
And then as I was like running out the door, I felt horrible because I realized I hadn't tipped her on top of the $20 that I gave her. I was like, oh my God, I'm such a noob. What an asshole. She probably hates me. Whatever. I was just like, that's that. And that was it. So no, I didn't know anyone. I didn't ask any questions. I went in and I bought a lap dance. And then I was like, I'm gonna audition at the Lusty Lady. And they were like, great, you're in, whatever. Like it was, I didn't realize it was gonna kind of opposite of your situation, Jade. It was a little too easy, nervous going in. And I wanted there to be like a couple more setbacks, but it was like doors wide open. You're a stripper now.
Can I ask what I've heard a lot about the Lusty Lady. I've spoken to some previous dancers. Can I ask specifically what you would do or kind of your specialty there for the peep shows?
Yeah. So the way it kind of worked was there was like a main stage that had like one pole, I think. They called it the fish tank, but it was like the the main stage. The room was mostly mirrored, like behind you and the pole in the center. And then facing you, there was windows. And on the customer end, these windows were like private booths. So you would open a door and go in and you had a private booth and you would put in money to like a vending machine slot, basically like $1 or whatever. And the window would roll up for like a certain amount of time, a minute or so. So in order to keep seeing, and all you would do is dance. You weren't allowed to do anything nasty.
Oh, because I heard about sex shows, like, or like masturbation shows.
Yes, but not on the main stage.
Oh, okay.
There were masturbation shows. I could tell you wild stories.
I'm sure.
But on main stage, all you do is dance. You're fully naked. People could jerk off
I was going to say, so people were jerking off, like, for sure. Like, why wouldn't you?
all the time jerking.
I would be jerking off. I mean, come on.
I mean, like, that's what you're there to do. So like, do it.
I would be offended if they weren't jerking off.
Right.
I'd be like, excuse me?
Is this thing on?
That I was like, what if I'm doing it wrong? And all the girls were like, there's no such thing. Like, men are gonna jerk off and couples could come in and fuck. Like, that was pretty cool. Like,
They would just have sex?
totally. I think my first night, was it my first night, second night? It was like early on. There was like a rotation of like where you had to stay on the stage. It wasn't just a free for all. So like my station at one point was on the corner that had bigger booths that could house more than one person. And I totally saw a couple fucking. It was just like, I was just like, wow.
You're like, can I watch you? Can we spell please?
So, and then when the window closes on the customer, they close on you too. Like you basically don't see them anymore. Like, is that? I've never been to one, so I can't
I'm
even like.
so curious. Did you like follow it down? It's like closing. You're like,
You do the fake like walking down the stairs thing.
Because you would get pretty bored because you're trapped in a room. And so we made up like a dance, like a really not sexy dance where we're just like,
Just doing like a white people at a wedding dance.
yeah, you're doing like almost like the Macarena, but also the chicken dance.
pre-TikTok, we're going to try and be cute, but it's like not sexy and we're clumping around in our heels. And we're like here to entertain ourselves. Like, you can watch or not, but like, we're going to do this dance, whether you want to see it or not. So it would like, there was that kind of vibe, like across the board. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah. And you guys made an hourly wage, right?
Ugh, yeah. So I think the lore of the Lusty is a lore of like empowerment. And I'm not saying it's not empowering. It's very, very cool that it was unionized. It was very cool that it was a co-op. It's special. It's unique. However, like my time at that place was like the last year of its existence. So it was like crumbling apart. We were ushering anyone in the door. They were barely making rent. The hourly was like $11 an hour to show full pussy. Like,
And that's all you would make. You wouldn't make any tips or anything?
no.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I'm not trying to talk shit on like a very special and like women-led like sex worker operation. Like, it's fucking cool. But like the reality of it was that it was hard and it didn't pay enough.
I feel like those two things can be true at the same time, because your story, especially about the payment, I've heard that from multiple ex-dancers of that club. So it's like, there's not enough resources for women to run things like that, dancers especially. So it's like, well, that like sucks. I would hope they didn't mean to like pay you so little. I hope like they were like racking it in.
No. What happened? Because I actually ended up working on the board and that kind of pulled back the curtain, so to speak. When I got hired, they were basically like, we don't know if we're going to be open. Like, they told me that straight up. So the fact that I was there for a year is like pretty great. They just didn't have the income. The structure was such that if you worked a certain amount of time, you got raises quite quickly. If you showed up to your shifts on time, you're reliable, you got raises. So it wasn't meant to stay at $11 an hour. It wasn't meant to be exploitive. They just truly were barely making ends meet. And so that's something that took the cut. Like, we have to make rent. We can't offer raises to those who have been here 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever. And it just kind of fell apart. I mean, it worked for a long time too. I also think that like the internet changed things. You don't have to wander into the Lusty Lady and hope that like your favorite girl, or that, you're attracted to anyone. Like, you can find it on the internet. You can find cam girls. You can find your favorite cam girl working any hours of the day. Like, you can find whatever you want.
Did you or do you ever do any online sex work, like videos, camming, OnlyFans, what have you?
I am not Virgo-esque enough for that. I looked into it. I had a friend who's like online and she was like, yes, I'm willing to like help you out if you want to go this route. And she just inundated me with information. And it just was like, I just know myself. I know that I'm a little bit too loosey-goosey you see, it just sounded like you needed to be so structured in order for it to pay off. And like, I can't take the heat. I can't deal with the things that people will say to you on like behind the, you know, armor of their own screen. No. If you say something shitty to me, I need to be able to like see you right in your fucking face and say some shit right back. Like I can't.
Yes. I was like, Jade knows that very well. I know that a little bit, but we have.
Yeah, I opted out. I was like, no, thanks. Not my vibe. And I'm just better in person.
No, that makes total sense.
How was it moving? So after the Lusty Lady, I'm guessing you went to like a traditional strip club where you were getting touched. Was that like a big shock?
Yes, it was a big shock. I had to learn a lot about boundaries real fucking fast. I had to have my personality like on really fast. I got hired at day shift at Gold Club and I was there for like 5 years. And oh my God, I just learned a lot. I learned a lot. I would say day shift was actually great. Like it was really great. I think things started getting a little dark for me like several years in, and I started working nights and it's just a different vibe everywhere. But I think especially at Gold Club, and I just like got a little too into the belly of the dragon. I'm down to share any details. I don't know what y'all's.
We want any details you'd like to share.
All of them.
I don't want to, I know, it's like, I don't want to be rude, but when we talk about our club experiences, like we get into it. We talk about
Titty sucking a lot.
titty sucking, people coming in their pants. Like we go like full on whatever. If there's any stories, like if you want to tell from that time in as much detail you're comfortable with, please do.
Yeah, I do. I'm really grateful for the experience I had, but I also think like I'm working on like healing myself in therapy. So like there's a lot of, you know, I don't know what your other guests have been like. I'm
You're
actually going to
our
go
first
dig
guest.
through
You're our first one.
What an honor. Well, I'm going to go back through all your old episodes anyway, but
Hell yeah.
so this is a treat. Yeah, I don't know. Like staying in the game as long as I did like hurt me. I started drinking more. I started dealing coke in the club. I was way more like whatever about my boundaries, or like it just not even whatever. It got murky is the best way I can describe it. And I was so tied to the identity, not only as a source of income, but just like who I was. It was my whole life. It was everyone I knew. It was everything I did. It is literally what got me into pole dance. Like it was my everything, that it was very hard for me to notice the true signs of burnout, to make any major changes. I felt like I had to drink at work. I felt like I had to have blow on me all the time. And I knew who my Adderall girls were, and I knew who my like dick sucking girls were. And like I had so many years of laying it out that like I didn't feel like I could just like walk away and be do what? Have like 8 years of nothing on my resume, literally nothing. Like so
Yeah, and like the longer you kept doing it, the more you were digging that hole, right?
Yeah.
It's like going in like deeper into the belly of the beast kind of. And like Jade and I have been dancing a little over a year now. And even like in that short of time, sometimes you have nights where it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we? No one would believe this. I mean, it's kind of why we started this podcast, because like we'd be like casually talking about shit that happened that people are like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, that's just like normal. That's just like Tuesday.
Glad to hear you say that, because me and my friends would also, especially when we would like take like trips, you know, like strip trips together, you know, multiple nights and like multiple girls traveling together, and we'd like get our like lunch / breakfast the next day, and we'd be like kind of comparing stories. We had a joke that like we were going to start a podcast called Last Night I Told This Guy. It doesn't really roll up.
That's so cute. Well, I think there needs to be more stripper podcasts. So if you ever want to start one, you have our full support.
There's nothing like stripper camaraderie. Like it is a truly special thing. It's very fun to get to be on this podcast and like sharing your camaraderie. So,
And like, I always like to surprise people. I'm not saying like, you know, there are some shady girls, whenever it happens, but definitely when customers are like, oh, you guys are probably all like looking at each other at competition or like bitchy in the locker room. I'm like, that's actually not true. Like everyone is
like,
so
you're so
nice.
hot.
You're so pretty. Like, oh my God, what's that outfit? Oh my God, your hair, you're so pretty. Like it's so supportive generally.
I know. I love these petty men. They're the high school petty girls. They're like, oh my God, who do you hate? I can't tell you how many times I would sit down on guys' laps, and the audacity, like that's the first thing they ask me, like, who do you hate here? I'm like, you petty bitch.
I'm like, I hate you. Pay up.
It's the patriarchy in full display. Like, who am I going to pit you against? The other girl is like, no, we're a team.
Yeah.
This is so funny.
I will say on like a little bit of a darker note that like when I talk to Candy a lot or my other stripper friends, like a lot of the crazy shit that happens in the club gets normalized because we like talk about it. It's happened to each other. We like joke about it. Obviously, like humor is kind of the way I like deal with things or like cope. And then I have a really good friend who's like not a dancer, and she listened to the podcast and she was like, oh, this story was really sad when we were kind of laughing. We're kind of telling this story about like a girl who's like really weird, but she's been doing like a lot of drugs. Bambi.
Oh, Bambi.
But she was kind of like, someone from the outside was like, that was really sad. And I was like, oh yeah, like I didn't even realize how sad that was.
I feel that, like, I talked to my best friend about this because we met in the club. And I think sometimes, like, it's really important to have the friends that you process with, the like hoe friends that you process with. And she and I were talking about this recently, even though we're both retired, just this idea of like how to open up and share about this industry with like the civvies, or like even in therapy, I've come across therapists who, are like, well, I'm just really worried about your safety. Or like my current therapist, who is great and I like her. But like when I first started talking about sex work, she's like, wow, it's just so empowering. And like, yeah, kind of like holding both of these truths. It's empowering and it's also not safe. But like, we are specialists, right? We're specialists. No one knows what it's like to be a specialist except people who do that job. So of course, you can't really just talk about these stories. Like no one's truly going to understand what it's like to walk in your shoes unless they've done that work, which is like very isolating sometimes, right?
I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel like the way the modern strip club is built, it's kind of, besides like the girls who are nice to your friends, like everything is kind of built against you. The management is against you. The pricing is against you. The people are against you. You're always trying to have to defend your job. And it's just like, I feel like it can be, when you don't have that support, it can be super, super isolating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, who's to say what's sad and what's like healing? Like laughing about some like weird dancer. Like, what else are you going to do? It doesn't help to be like, Pity isn't cute. Like, she's one of us, right? Like,
yeah,
have to just be like, yeah, there she is doing her fucking thing again. Like,
and she knows she's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, she makes good money and she's been doing it for a long time. Like, it doesn't give like, oh, someone's like forcing her to do this, like that's when it gets a little, but like, I honestly don't see that. I know there's like all this panic, like moral panic about like sex trafficking. And like, I remember when I was about to start auditioning, I was like dating this guy from the dating apps, like maybe like third date, maybe like very, very recently. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to audition at this club. And he's like, oh, well, I hope you don't get sex trafficked. That was his response. And I was like, there's like this perception, like immediately. Obviously, like that was the last. I broke up with him for that reason. Honestly, the sex was weak too, but but I was just like, what? Like, do people actually think that? That's so weird.
what kind of response is that? Like, hope you don't get sex trafficked. Like, okay, are you just saying that to be like troll me, or are you worried? Because if you're worried, that's not like
The way.
you're not really showing a lot or care.
Seems like a joke to me, like just like a tasteless joke.
Right, which is why I was like, that's not funny. And if you were actually worried, you wouldn't say it like that. So
Dude,
I'm opt out.
I'm going to put a shout out, if this is okay, to another podcast for anyone who might be listening who doesn't know shit about sex trafficking. There's a podcast called You're Wrong About, and the name of the episode is Sex Trafficking. You're wrong about sex trafficking. I highly recommend it. It's like an hour and a half long that goes deep.
Oh,
It does touch on these moral panics and like what sex trafficking actually is. Or if you like more of a reading person, me and my best friend ran a sex worker book club for a long time. And the book Revolting Prostitutes, it kind of covers the same thing. It's a grim read, but I'm really about sex work media and like debunking of things.
yeah, that's amazing. I definitely want to check those out.
So like people are like, man, sex trafficking. You're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, truly on a global level, sex trafficking is like what we think of it is as Americans is not what it is. And it's tied to like 10,000 other moral panics that we could do things about. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm just putting it out there.
No, please. We love to get political on the podcast. So
Definitely want to check out that book.
yeah. Just have a feeling that if sex work, stripper, full service worker dominatrix, whatever, were like a more legalized thing. And it wasn't so, to have so many bad stereotypes that we could like focus our energy on fucking sex trafficking and like children's sex trafficking and like all these things. But people are just like attacking us. We're like doing, I'll call it consensual sex work, even though it's just sex work. We're like grown ass women or men or anyone in between doing our own thing. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, it's a job. Like, chill.
Yeah, I love it ironically when guys come in and they're like they're just very pushing against like, well, why are you here? Like, especially when I don't always tell people that I have like a graduate degree, but like sometimes I do, and they're like, kind of just to dispel that, because I'm like, I choose to be here, like I want to be here, like I do have other options, because there's always like the idea that you're kind of doing this as like the last resort kind of thing.
I know.
And they're like, but why? It's so exploitative. I'm like, I felt more exploited at a desk job where like I had no say in my hours, like
Yeah.
just kind of like never being able to express any individual opinions, like that kind of thing, where it's like, or why don't we just think about capitalism as exploitative, and just instead of focusing on like sex work because it has to do with like your sexuality, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Yes, that's the answer.
yeah, it's like, okay, if sex work is exploitative, maybe it's because all work is, and then you know what I mean, but like, why focus on this one?
Because it's like it gives them an excuse to hate women, and people love excuses to hate women who are primarily sex workers. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's always that like balancing of like, well, I could, because sometimes I go, well, I really want to go back to school and I'm saving up, and then they give you the money. But sometimes you're on this mood where you're like, no, let me tell you, I never want to go back to school, and I just want to make money while I'm hot.
Yeah, like whatever you think they want to hear, that's what you got to tell them. And like, yeah, it makes sense to like divulge that sometimes and not other times.
I would love to hear about your experience at the Clem's Club.
Okay.
So whatever you want to share, if there's, I don't know, just like anything notable, a story or like a theme, or how you liked working there, etc. Any gossip tea, we love it.
Okay, yes. I mean, same. I'm definitely here for the gossip. So, I mean, God, I guess it's been a few years now since I've been there, but I think there's probably some of the same old personalities. I would say, overwhelmingly like positive experience there. I often went with friends. It was easy. I felt like the flow was really nice because of the state laws that are different from my state laws in this particular club. To me, in comparison to Gold Club, there wasn't as much like dancing around the fact that it was a strip club and people are there to spend money in sex work. I felt like at Gold Club, there's like this like girlfriend factory kind of vibe. Like, oh, you have to keep it classy. Okay, but like, how do I keep it classy and also literally be a stripper? Like, which is it? Am I selling a lap dance, or am I just sitting here and being classy? Like, there just was less of that. Like, come in, have fun, get a beer, talk to the ladies, get lap dances. These are your options, and then get the fuck out. Gold Club, we have fight nights, we have sports, we have more sports. Come in and watch all the sports. Oh yeah, I guess there's also women. There just seemed to be a little bit more streamlined. So it was very easy to go in, work the floor. I love that. I love staying busy, like talk to every single person, make your rounds over and over and over until you get into VIP. Like, I like staying busy. When I'm bored, then it's over for me. Then I stop making money. So I like that about Clem's Club.
Are you a stage dancer primarily? Do you consider yourself that? Or you're like, let's get into VIP. I'm more comfortable doing private dances. I enjoy it more.
VIP for me is only about making money. I hate VIP. It's so tedious. I just feel like, especially one-on-one, I'm just like, fuck, how do I fill this time with this person I do not care about? If it's with other girls, then it's fun.
Yeah.
And like so much fun. Then it's like, yes, 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 like high reward for everyone involved. I'm good at stage. My personality shines on stage. I'm a Leo, like I'm meant for the spotlight. Put me on stage and then I can like sweep up walking around the room. Like, it's easy. That's my flow. Like, do a really good stage set and then like, who wants me?
Yes. I would say that's like very similar to Jade style.
Yeah, because like the hour, I don't even push it, like, because it's so torturous. Like after 30 minutes, I'm done. I'm over it. And I don't know how the breakdown of how much money they took from the VIP rooms was at the time that you were there. But I've like done the math, and like lap hopping, basically like asking for a lap dance is $30.
Oh, nice.
You usually get between 30 and 40, but if there's enough volume of people where you can like get 2 lap dances from 10 people, like I can't do math, but that's already like more than you would have made in the hour, which for some reason just feels so long. Like
Does. And like and it ups your chances of danger, really, is just, I'm just gonna say that word, like maybe not like physical danger, but like having to say no over and over again is not safe. Like it's just, that's not safety. I don't want to have to fend off my customer for an hour. I don't want him to feel disappointed. Nah.
I know, Jade, even a few weeks ago, I think you told this story. A woman kept trying to go down on you during your half-hour room. So guess what? It's not just men, people.
Oh my God. Some of the worst customers I've had have been couples, because women feel, I shouldn't generalize, but the female customers that I have dealt with, I feel like there's this like, I'm one of the guys kind of vibe. They have to like prove themselves, or they feel they have to prove themselves. And
I'm chill, girl.
totally. And it's just over the top.
Yeah.
Over the top.
We slander women at strip clubs, women patrons at strip clubs all the time. So you're not saying anything that we disagree with.
I keep repeating myself, but I have this theory that women at the strip club have to objectify us even more than men.
Yeah.
Just because there has to be like a separation, like I'm woman, but she's woman dancer, she's prop. And so like I've never been slapped harder than by a woman, because it's like it's just some body, you know what I mean? Whereas men kind of just see women as objects all the time. So there's not a huge distinction between like woman stripper. But
that it's so fucking hard. Damn.
I'm curious, this is just for my personal curiosities. Did you know
Oh yeah.
we call him DJ Sleazeball on this podcast?
So I have a story that's not really about, but like kind of. It's one of those stories that like in retrospect is kind of funny, but also is kind of sad. So again, I was kind of like in my twilight years of dancing. I had quit Gold Club. I was travel dancing a lot. I went to Clem's club one night with my friends. And I don't know if they still do this here. I'm very curious. Before COVID, they would do the like shame show, you know, where like some guy's birthday or bachelor party.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the bachelor
Come
party.
up on stage and like blindfold him, beat the shit out of him, dangle the cherry, and then like put a dildo in his mouth. Is this all?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. So this shit sucks. I'm just like, this is a waste of everyone's time and it's not cute. And like, we just say like the gnarliest things about the guys.
Yes.
In on
He's brutal. He roasts them. I would cry if someone roasted.
Dude, I imagine his game is still on point. So I don't know what happened this one fucking night. He's like, Neptune, please, 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 please help me out. And I'm just like, fuck, I really don't want to. And he's like, I already got so-and-so. It was like some new girl. She'd like barely been dancing. He's like, please help her out. She said, yes, will you do it with her? I was like, oh, because I think of myself as the big sister, which was like, maybe not the right move in retrospect. I was like, I'm going to look out for this girl. And she's like, oh, what do you want to do? She's like, I don't really want to do the dildo. I was like, oh, fine. I guess I blacked out the part. Maybe we were hitting him. I don't remember.
I think you hit him with like a belt, no? Like
yeah. So, I mean, again, like the whole thing is a fucking circus and the club is full. So we're like all up on stage. We're like, okay, time to like whip cream your mouth. And there's a cherry, try to eat the cherry. And I stick the dildo in and the guy freaks out. He like jumps back and he pulls his blindfold off with a full mouth of whipped cream. And he looks me like dead in the eyes and he spits at me. On my face, just like,
oh my God.
And I was like, oh, fuck no. And like in front of everyone, like all my friends that I was traveling with, like I was fucking, like so irate. I don't have the words for how humiliated and angry I was. I was like, I'm not going to make any money for us tonight because I'm so angry. Like when I'm that angry, like you don't want to be sexy with anyone. You want to murder.
Yeah.
Did he get kicked out? I'm guessing no.
Again, like I'm a travel dancer there at this point. Like I don't have any sway. No one knows who I am because he's like kind of buddy with, you know, everyone. And I'm like, this fucking guy, like you put me on stage and he like spit on me. He spit on me. I'm covered in spit and dairy. And he's like coked out of his mind at this point. And so he's like, well, like get all the money from his friends.
That's such a response.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, get kicked out. He's like, no, I just got his friends money.
Oh my God.
Just grinding his teeth.
He's grinding away.
I have seen someone get really mad. Like obviously there's like it is a show that the friends like I feel like it's up to the friends to know their friend who's gonna go up there because like so many guys take it in such a funny way and then they dance on the pole or whatever. But I did see one chuck the dildo across the room, just like be so mad.
That's a huge dildo. It's like this big.
It's a
It's
big.
like a Subway foot long.
Like, yeah, it's like my fucking forearm or whatever. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
No, it's huge. It's heavy.
And
Yeah,
like, it's just not cute to like show that level of like homophobia for one thing.
Right, exactly.
Be chill.
It's a hot girl putting a dildo in your mouth. It's not like an actual penis. Like
Also,
relax.
like you have a penis. Like get over it. Like what?
Yeah, I don't know, like have fun. There's whipped cream, there's cherries, like laugh at yourself. Like your friends did this, not me.
Right.
I cannot believe someone did that to you. And of course, I'm guessing you just still got the minimum. It's like $20 to do like that little show.
Totally. And like I was too angry to make more money. I was really upset.
and just violated. Like
Yeah.
I have a lot of like not fun stories, so I'll try to keep it to the fun ones because honestly, like Clem's Club, again, as like my specific role there was like travel dancing. Like I had a really nice time most of the time. I didn't have any bad experiences for the most part. Like that one kind of like was off the charts bad, but other customers were just sort of like benign and forgettable. This is kind of like a nice, like wholesome story. I had one night I was stuck in town due to a snowstorm. And I had just had to put my cat down like long distance. It was fucked up.
Oh.
It was fucked up. And I skipped work one night because I was horribly depressed and went to work the next night. And I remember it was around St. Patrick's Day. So it was like pretty busy. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. Like I took one night off. I want to go in and work and I want to just kind of like clear my head. And then when the roads open up, I'm like getting the fuck out of here. And all these guys came in from Erie, Pennsylvania, which is just like an armpit town. But it's an armpit town that I used to live in.
What does armpit town mean?
Maybe that's like a colloquialism that's like,
Jade grew up in Mexico. So there's like, sometimes there's a little, she doesn't get some sayings and I'll have to explain them to her.
it's like a ex-industrial town by the Great Lakes. And it's in Pennsylvania, which is just like a state full of hicks. So everywhere I've ever lived has been like an armpit.
I did once have a guy who was like, I'm really into armpits. It was like, makes me nervous.
I feel like they're better than feet, guys, but I digress. But it was really fun because all we did was talk about all the places we used to eat in this shitty town in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I made a bunch of money because they're all like, Erie.
That's so
Home.
cute.
Home away from home.
Most of my experiences at Clem's Club is just like kind of nice and wholesome and people who are like mostly ready to part with their money. So I'm trying to think of like some good gossip.
Did you ever work at?
No, they never hired me. I tried to.
That's where we met last year.
That's the only place that would take us.
Yeah.
When the Lusty went out of business, that was the first place I went. And they were like, they didn't even let me audition. The house mom was like, no, thanks. So I was like, all right. And I went to Gold Club and they're like, yeah, great. You can start tomorrow or whatever. I had a lot of friends that worked there. I know your stage name is correct.
Yeah.
I also briefly used the name at Clem's Club.
Oh,
Yeah.
you did.
Oh.
Wanted something so different than like who I am. I'm curious. I was not under the name very long because the original who'd had her name forever was just like, oh my God, y'all, she was perfect. And she had long blonde hair and she had like the longest, like everything was pink, long acrylics with like the diamonds all over them. And she sold Coke to Robbie. He would like hit me up.
Wrong.
So whatever, she was like there, then she left. So that's why they gave me the name. You know, there's like this territorial name situation, but she hadn't been there for a while. She came back during my absence. Whatever, I'm a stan. Like she can be as bitchy as she wants. She can be a total mess. She would just like only drink. Oh God, what was it that she only drank? It was like that one tequila.
1942. It's like $50 a shot.
Yes. She only drank
Oh.
1942. I'm out of the game. So I don't even remember.
I kind of love, there's this girl, a blonde with like giant tits, and she only drinks champagne from I love when girls have like the whole persona. It's just like, yeah, I get it. I could never do that, but
I know. I wish I had like the persona. It just seemed like so exotic. It seemed so like, oh, you just are really like dialed into your work. Like that's actually who you are. Like she probably went out and introduced herself as being drink 1942 only, like a style that like I can't commit to. But yeah, she came back and she's like, I was first. And I'm just like, yeah, you were.
Yeah, you could have it. Love that for you.
I am not your competition at all. She was the greatest.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you want to share about specifically club stories, customers? Have you ever danced with any like, I don't know, any like celebrities come into the club that you've worked at?
fuck you, Jeremy Renner. I have to say it every time.
I mean, like, yes, there have been celebrities, but like celebrities don't like, I think again, like it kind of works really well for like the persona girls or like the really like 20-year-olds, like kind of creep, like barely legal kind of situation. I met the one guy from Train Spotting, not Ewan McGregor.
No, I was like, Ewan McGregor?
Free lap dances all night, whether you want them or not.
Totally. He was also in the new Wonder Woman. I can like text you guys if you're curious, but he's not actually famous. He's like fourth rate famous, but he was he was riding that shit real hard, y'all. Like he was like, I'm a celebrity. I'm in movies. Don't you recognize?
My IMDb.
Yeah. Like I think his name was also Ewan, but not Ewan McGregor. Anyway,
The lesser Ian.
he didn't tip.
Yeah, that's kind of the theme that we've been getting. Also, I forgot who was telling me this, but I guess in Vegas, some nights when certain celebrities work, that the house fee is like 10 times, like whoever the fuck is coming. So instead of it being $100, it's like $500. And then they don't really end up spending a lot of money. So from most people I hear it's like a bust, unless it's Drake. Apparently he like drops like thousands of dollars.
I did. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, like early on, and I think the first time I went to Vegas, I worked a night that Dennis Rodman was there. They didn't, up our fees. I don't recall. Maybe we started really early. I don't remember, but he did almost step on me.
He's so tall.
He's so tall. And I was like talking to some people at the edge of the stage. This is at Sapphire. And there's like a little stage and it goes upstairs to another stage. I don't know why they weren't just like, hey, time to get off bright lights. And everyone's like, welcome, Dennis Rodman. And I look up and he's like on my stage, like not looking at me. I'm like, ah! Had to crawl off stage in front of everyone. All my stories are embarrassing.
You know what? I would love to hear. I asked because like I want to hear a good celebrity story. I had a little run-in with a celebrity last weekend.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Well, it wasn't at a strip club, but Lil Nas X came to our burlesque show.
So jealous I missed that. I'm insanely jealous.
So he shows up. First of all, like we're getting ready to start, and it's I'm not gonna say the venue, but it's like a really popular venue for drag shows. And this, I guess, he's in town performing, and he was gonna have his after party there. I guess like he booked it out the night after, so he wanted to come support the show, which we love. Is great. There was a rumor that started passing around. So backstage was like, dude, I think Lil Nas X is coming. I was like, don't fucking tell me that. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then people and then all of a sudden they're like, dude, he has a table in the front. Like he's here with the security. He's here. So he stayed for the first half. I performed the second half. So he didn't see my amazing act. It's fine. I would have scared him. There was like one scary act and it was like a Texas
I think he would have loved it. Not that I know him at all, but how can you not love that?
I think he would have loved it too. I don't even know the act. I feel like he would have loved it.
And it was really cool for him to come. I will say, if I can just be like a petty bitch,
Do it.
they should have tipped more. Like they were tipping okay, but they were just tipping like normal audience members. And I'm like, y'all should have come in with like racks and like because they had to leave at intermission. I'm guessing because people started realizing that was him and like he probably would have got bombarded and like I'm guessing it was easier. So like I don't fault him for leaving, but I'm like, send some hundos backstage for all the dancers that you like missed.
Yeah, that's your job.
So that was the only thing. I was like, they were tipping. Actually, our mutual friend, right?
Yes.
She opened the show and she hasn't danced in forever. And she's like freaking out. And she was like doing some she was like on the floor, like grinding, like doing some twerky moves. And one of his friends was like, like making it rain on her.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were good.
That's a great
Yeah,
comeback.
they would have been good as like normal audience members. I would have been like, oh, they're really great audience members. But because they're super rich and famous, I was like, y'all could have made it rain.
The bar is higher.
The bar is a little higher.
Yeah, I've never seen a celebrity make it rain. Like Dennis Rodman threw a couple ones down to some other dance. Like the club at least should, like, in the case of Dennis Rodman, like supply some ones to make it seem like he, like,
Right.
you know, for the, oh, he's spending money, we should all spend money. Like, duh.
Well, they probably just make sure they buy bottles and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said, you know, you got into pole dancing through stripping. So can you explain to us like kind of what you do now?
Yes. So A to B, like stripping allowed me to change careers. I teach pole dance and I'm a professional aerialist. I perform a lot. I'm gearing up for a contract starting next month.
Ooh. Can you say where it is, or is it under wraps?
It's not under wraps. I just don't know because I'm bad. I can tell you the name of the company. It's Cirque de Bohème,
Okay.
and it's in Sonoma.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm super psyched about that. Feels like I'm living my dream job to get to be a performer, and I get to teach. I teach not only pole but also aerial straps. Even though I did circus technically before I got into stripping, I really feel like the influence of the club just empowered me to learn pole and to know that I want to teach it. And also, like, I have so many hours of performing. Like, even if it's at a strip club, it fucking counts. Like, it's counting towards your art. And I feel so confident on stage because of that. Like, I owe my stage presence to stripping in a lot of ways. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, I love my life. The transition out of sex work was super fucking hard.
I was going to ask about that. I'm super curious.
Not to be doom and gloom, but I don't think it's ever not hard. It's a hard industry. Why would it be easy to leave? Like, I think even the sort of fantasy of like girls finding their sugar daddy, and like getting their lives paid for, like, it's not all that it seems. It's hard to leave that work. I was very poor. I still am. Like, I don't make good money, and like that is okay. But I think the fear around that was really hard. Like, it gets its claws in you. I mean, that's why it took like 2 years to quit.
What was the biggest fear? Is the fear like, what else am I capable of doing? Or like, how will I survive without the money?
Both, and even more. Yeah. Fears around financial stability. Like, I have only ever been financially stable as a sex worker. Even now, like, I'm just being real with y'all. Like, it's not cute right now, but it taught me a lot. So yeah, I had a lot of fears around stability. I had a lot of fears around like I said before, like what else am I going to do? Not that I didn't think I was capable of doing anything, but like, what else do I want to do? Like, I honed my craft so specifically. Like, what, I'm like good at manipulating men emotionally. Like, how do I twist that into like a job?
Right. How do you translate that to another industry that you like actually enjoy and find fulfilling in like a similar way?
Totally. And so now I just don't do that. I don't manipulate men.
Not even for fun. You're just like, okay, what can I get out of this stranger at a bar?
Absolutely. I do that. 100%. It's just, yeah, it's easy. It's like riding a bike. Like, once you learn how to do it, you can't not do it. I know how to turn it on and like get the upgrade at whatever the fuck, you know, like.
I know. Jade and I get in trouble because when we go out and party, we're like gonna get everything for free and just like.
When I first started dancing, it took me a really long time to like make peace with the realization that I want to do this for longer. Like, I started after getting fired from a job and I was like, okay, I'll just do this while I figure out the next part. And for me, there's like, I think it sounds like you did it for a long enough time they were like ready to leave. But I think there's also this like kind of addictive quality because it's so up and down. There's like a lot of adrenaline and dopamine that you get from like, oh, you know, last night I made $21, but tonight I made $1,500. Like, that kind of like keeps bringing you back. Like, I was like starting to apply for other jobs, but just the idea of like missing that rush was like, I couldn't commit to applying to other jobs, really.
I totally relate to that. I think for me too, I'm wondering if this resonates at all with y'all. For me, there was also, I think this is just something that I do to myself also, is like X amount of years equals X amount of like clout. Like, if I'm dedicating this amount of time to my industry, then I get to be an expert in this amount of time, which like was arbitrary and like completely dictated by me and an imaginary number. I'm like, I'm going to be a stripper for 10 years. Well, I didn't make it to 10 years. Like, why? Why stay 10 years when you're burnt out at 7 and staying in year or two, you know, like why? So I was tied to this idea that I had to make it in order to like earn some sort of like, you're a real stripper because you stayed.
I'm a stripper.
Yeah, like, no, I'm a fucking real stripper because I went to a strip club and made money every fucking night. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it was 10 years. So that's too long. That's too long, in my opinion.
Yeah. I hear sometimes some veteran dancers be like, I've been in this game 20 years. I'm like, why?
There's this one dancer at Clem's club who's at the very least in her late 60s. I've talked to her and she never has struck me as like sad. And I know it's hard, like, you know, there's like the Robin Williams effect, you know, like you never know when someone's like hurting, but I think she kind of loves it. And guys love her too. Like, even though she's like,
No, she is like the boss. She's the one with like the secret language. Do you know about her secret language?
what? No.
She has like menu items with the VIP hosts. I can't believe I'm spilling her tea. That she'll be like, oh, and just ring it under like a blue whatever. We're gonna call it a blah blah blah. And she's in cahoots with everyone. That's all I'm gonna say.
So is it like to get like water shots or?
I think to like steal money from men.
We said, we haven't been doing this for very long at all, but I just love learning people's like weird like hustle tricks. And I'm always like, how could I never think about that?
I know we were having a conversation a few days ago because it's been kind of slow for Jade. I haven't been to Clem's for like a month, I think, because like October, I've had too many shows to travel. But we're like, what is something new we can try? Like, what is the secret? We have a friend who like, she'll make $1,000 and is like, oh, that's okay. I'm like,
Oh, this is really good.
right? Thank you.
No, I'm happy with half of that, like on most nights. But like finding out that there's this one girl who just like dirty talks to guys. It's like, I want to feel your hard cock. And we're like, what? Like, who taught you that?
We were sending each other voice messages trying to say without laughing, like,
Oh, trying to say the word cock.
My best friend is very good at dirty talk. And she's like, I make so much money dirty talking. If there's one thing I really learned is like, you have to find your hustle and stay true to it. Because I know that if I tried to dirty talk, it just wouldn't work.
I always go in, I'm like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be mysterious, but I'm such a loudmouth. I love talking. It's like, it's a blessing and a curse because I'm the type of person to have like a club boyfriend the whole night. And I'm like, I will get a lot of money, but you know, that means that like sometimes people don't come through with the money or whatever. Like, I'll be like, I'm going to do this persona. And then I'm like, oh, well, I was homeschooled and like, here's my like trauma and like, whatever. I have like a
Didn't you
million
want to do like a
animals.
southern accent one night? You're
I
like, I'll just be
did,
the
because
southern belle of the ball.
I was watching a lot of True Blood.
Did it work?
I didn't do it. I'm too scared.
I don't know. I think it just like whenever inspiration would strike for me, like guys that were willing to play along, I could go so much further. This is good, I think. My favorite weird trick was to get guys like into like incest talk.
Oh, House of the Dragon who? Okay.
Don't discount it, y'all. So me and my friend, we don't look anything alike, but we're both like skinny brunettes who are white. And people are like, oh, are you sisters? Are you cousins? Are you roommates? We're like, whatever you want us to be. As soon as we started going into our like incest flow, we're like, we're your sisters. You better be good or we're going to call your mom. Just like whatever the up of our heads. Yeah, y'all.
That's amazing. I don't know.
We're gonna call your mom right now.
Call your mother. I don't know if that would work with me and Jade. We do like working together. We kind of do like the angel and the devil kind of thing because she's very like goth, dark pentagrams, and I'm like, I'm
Good
cute.
cop, bad cop.
Well, see, here's the thing. We start out good cop bad. Then we kind of switch because Jade's actually a real softie and I'm like actually really crazy. And so then it'll like swap and the people just don't know what to think, but they like it.
That is very powerful. Like the flip flop, they don't know it's coming. Like they're already in over their heads because they're horny. There's two of you. They're confused. Like what you have going on is actually very powerful. I think you're doing it right.
I think I've talked about it before, but Anton LaVey, he wrote The Satanic Witch, and he has this thing of like, you have this persona that's very consistent, right? Like, and he gives names for like witches. Like Candy's name is like very fitting with her whole persona. Like I think she perfected that. But then the switch kind of flipping into the opposite is kind of what like flabbergasts men. And it's like, now you have them in your grasp of you. Cause like a lot of guys look at me and they're like, oh, she's scary, you know, cause I'm just like not very sweet. And then suddenly you flip it and they're like, oh, she's actually really nice. And that's like kind of like more powerful than just going up as like really sweet all together. And then Candy does the opposite, where she like looks like all pinks and rainbow, and then suddenly she's like talking about how she's like a dom.
I'm like,
And,
oh,
like,
you want me to
whips
hit you?
people.
I would love to taste your blood. What's happening? I'm like, what are your favorite horror movies? Because I'm like, I love horror movies. Horror is a big part of my life. And so I have this thing where people are like, oh, I like horror movies too. I'm like, oh, really? Which ones? I'm like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, I just watched Martyrs and like the Serbian film back to back before I got here. It's like not a big deal, whatever. But yeah, The Purge is adorable. Aw. They're like, huh?
No, so I'm like, what?
I'm like, here, watch these movies. I'm like, oh, you like horror movies? Watch this one.
That's really good. I love hearing about this. Also, Satanic Witch is one of my favorite books. It changed my life. Like, I'm so glad that y'all brought it up. That's amazing. I think I lent my copy out, but I need to get it back. It's one of my favorite books of all time.
It's tiny and so helpful.
Yeah, it reframed a lot about my whole life, honestly. Rye's last chapter of like how to cast spells, where he's like walk around in the trench coat.
You're walking around in a trench coat like fully naked.
Oh, I need to read this book.
Yeah, I can lend it to you.
It kind of hit me sideways. It was very good.
I know his ex-wife. She's a burlesque dancer. Do you know her?
I do. Yeah, she's great.
She's so sweet. She's like very bubbly and cute. And then she's like, hail Satan.
I know.
Hail Satan, y'all.
Yeah.
I think it was Hubba. And even when you get out of the game, you never get out of the game. So I had a client in the audience who pays me.
I do escorty stuff. So
He came to the show and afterwards he was like, oh my God, I was really afraid of that satanic woman. She came out and was like, hail Satan. And I had to like look away. I was like, oh my God. You really
what a baby.
Oh yeah, he's a tender baby.
Yeah, I think maybe we should wrap it up. We've had you so long. Are there any last minute questions you have, Jade, or anything you want to include Neptune before we...
No, I just want to say thank you so much, and our first guest ever.
I know. Do you want to share your social medias or any of your projects or anything like that?
Sure.
Yeah, if you want people to find you, your shows.
Yes. I am mostly active on my Instagram social media, vix.n.ariel. And that's where you can find all information about my shows. If there's anyone who's in California who wants to come up to Sonoma.
Yeah, go drink some wine. Watch,
Yeah.
like that poll video you sent me, like I'm just clocking. It was like really, really cool. Like I didn't realize it was the same person.
That's amazing.
That means a lot. And thank you both for having me. This is a huge honor. This is exactly what I need in my life. I can't wait to listen to more.
Hell
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
Rate, review, subscribe. CRSecretspod@gmail.com for email. CRSecretspod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
We got them all, folks.
Bye.